Hello, I'm Bonnie Rabikoff, and this week we are in the kitchen at the American Restaurant, chatting with their executive chef, Debbie Gold. Debbie, thank you for inviting us into your kitchen.
Oh, my pleasure to have you.
Did you know that you wanted to be a chef when you were very young?
I always loved to cook. I did, yes. I was not one to want to cook, get the cake box and cook cakes out of the box. I always had to do things from scratch. When I was growing up, we didn't have the slice and bake cookies, but I always made cookies from scratch. Everything I did had to be from scratch.
So this has been a lifelong pursuit or passion for you. And where did it begin? Where did your career in the culinary world begin?
I started, I have a degree from University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana in restaurant management. So I guess that's kind of where it started.
So you'd approached it from the management, the business of restaurants, but you loved the cooking aspect. So then you were exploring how can you get more technique, how can you learn more in the kitchen?
And my focus was really hands-on knife work. How do I do this? How do I cook this? That was really my main focus. At the time, going to Europe, going to France. France was still the icon of all cooking, good quality cooking. So the focus then for me was how do I get over to France?
So you decided early on that what you really wanted was to go to France. And we've heard this from several chefs, 20 years ago, that that's where you went if you were serious.
Yes, absolutely.
So how did you get to France? Because I know you did.
Yes, I did. There's a school in Tonle-Hermitage, which is on the Rhone Valley, just about an hour south of Lyon.
And is Lyon's the food capital?
Yes.
Was the food capital? So you were close to it.
Yes.
You were.
Yes. And so I found a connection to the school, the culinary school in Tonle-Hermitage. And basically I just set up going to the school, just doing the culinary program at the school, and then the teachers, once I got to know the teachers helped me set up what we call stages, or little work stints in different restaurants to get hands-on.
Is it what we would call internships here?
Internship, yes. Yeah,
so,
I couldn't think of the word. That's it.
So you were working with the professors there to get the kinds of experiences in restaurants, the knife skills, and the
right. And
that had to be an incredible experience for you.
I loved it. And even then, more so in France than it was in the United States, there aren't too many women in the kitchen.
I was going to ask you about that because I'm still finding that is true for the most part in Kansas City. The executive chefs, there are still many more men. So you had a couple of challenges to deal with.
Well, yes, and I think in France, I used it to my advantage, being, this cute little girl from Chicago. Because really, they would say,
Did you speak French?
Not when I went. I learned it as I lived there.
Okay.
Yes, so while I was living there, I learned it. So what I did, basically, I'd get a job. My professors would find me a job in one of the restaurants, and I would go there, and really it was all male, and they would kind of look at me and go, "Oh no, you just stand right there.
Don't get wet or
dirty." You don't want to break a nail. Incident. So I was like, no, I have a knife. Show me what to do, and just show me. And so as they started showing me, it got sort of she can do this. Makes my job easier to, fine, you do it. And they'd show me how to do things to, you're working too fast, slow down. If you work too fast, we'll get more work, and we don't want that. And I was like,
okay.
Which I didn't care, as long as they were showing me,
As long as you were learning.
Yes. And then I would go back, I was still staying at the school dormitory, and I would go back and I'd write down everything I saw and learned, and I'd memorize recipes that they were doing and write them all down. And
so how long were you in France?
Total 4 years I was in France.
Oh, this was a real commitment on your part for the long haul. So when you came back to America, you were ready, you were going to be taken seriously, you had
Right.
the training and the experience to do what you needed to do. So where did you go when you returned to the United States?
Well, I'm originally from Chicago, so I returned back home.
Great food town.
Great food town.
Great food town.
And Charlie Trotter's restaurant had just opened. I think he had been open less than 6 months.
He's an inspiration to so many chefs because he was right on the cutting
Yes.
edge of.
Yeah, and he was at the beginning of the culinary evolution to where we are today, I think. And
He really provided leadership for that.
yeah, well, there was, I think, a beginning, a first sort of evolution of food with Jean-Louis Paladin and Alice Waters and those kind of people trying to, fresh food, farmer-driven food, local products and stuff. And then I think Charlie was at a different stage of the evolution of cooking. Like I said, that leads to where we are today, and using those different products in more innovative ways and different ways. And so I got a job there.
That's impressive to begin
Yeah.
with Charlie Trotter. That's where people work up to. And
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
you paid your dues in France. So,
Yes,
yeah.
I did.
So from Charlie Trotter, how'd you get to Kansas City?
There are headhunters in this field. And so basically I was talking to a couple of the headhunters. They said, well, we've got this great restaurant, but I can't tell you where it is. It was the
It was
American.
the American.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reputation, precedes itself all over the country of this
Precedes
place. Yeah.
itself. And then you've been a restaurant owner yourself.
Correct.
Went to 40 Sardines and did that for a while. So then your restaurant management skills, I would assume, came into play as a restaurant owner as well.
Well, I'd say even more so is your business skills. And it gives you a different perspective of the restaurant business when you take on that different hat.
Now you're back here at the American, just kind of back home.
Yes,
here
it's
at the
great.
American. And what is it that you are going for here? The concept that you're going for here? And I know you have been one of the chefs that has been absolutely devoted to working with the local growers. You're into organic and
Yes,
sustainable
absolutely,
for a long time, so
Yes.
I know that's a piece of what you do. But what is it you're trying to accomplish here at the American today?
Well, when the American restaurant was first opened, I believe the philosophy was to bring the best food to Kansas City, American food. It was really one of the first restaurants in Kansas City really doing American food. And it opened in 1974, which was about the same time as Jean-Louis Paladin, who was at the Watergate in Washington, D.C., and Alice Waters. Were also changing the look of the culinary profession. And so I'm trying to maintain that philosophy. I think it's a beautiful dining room. We've got such great support for this restaurant that I'm making sure that we're staying relevant to the culinary landscape that's out there right now.
So still keeping the spirit of American food and celebrating that, that's what we are. And
Absolutely.
I know that your restaurant enjoys a fair amount of tourist trade because of its location. So you're dealing with the local people who remain loyal and come back, as well as the new folks who are traveling to our city. And obviously you're part of what we can celebrate in Kansas City with this amazing restaurant. So you're doing seasonal?
Always seasonal. Have to do seasonal. There's no other better product unless it's in season. The best product is product that comes from the field either a day or 2 days out. You cannot get any better flavor in a product, any better quality of a product. And I also believe it's important to support the farmers, because I think we need to all, as a community, grow as a community.
What keeps you inspired every day in the kitchen? I ask all the chefs that. I mean, it is hard work. You're on your feet. It's hot. How do you stay inspired?
Yeah, that's a challenge. I'm in my kitchen all the time, majority of the time. And so it's like I'm in my own little world, and I get, blinders on, and this is what I see. So what little bit I get to travel always helps. Anymore these days, it's being on different chefs' blogs. And it's
So learning from other chefs.
oh, absolutely.
Yes.
The enthusiasm of my sous chefs and my cooks for this profession.
So supporting your chefs and also learning from them, as well as your colleagues throughout the United States, is that exchange of information, and it's inspiring.
It's very interesting because when I do different events with the other chefs from across the nation, it's a lot of fun when we sit and talk about either the food that we are doing for that event, or just what's going on in their restaurants and their kitchens, and you can learn so much from the other chefs, and I never undervalue what I can take from somebody else.
And you've done some wonderful television with.
I've been very lucky, yes.
Yeah, well, I think that your hard work and talent is recognized, and so that's, congratulations
Thank you very
on
much.
those accomplishments as well.
Thank you.
So today we're making one of your signature dishes.
Yes.
It's the slow cooked, that movement to slow
Yes,
cooking,
yes.
duroc pork and cauliflower and marbled potatoes. We're gonna go in the kitchen and do that. I think you should come with us. Hello, I'm Bonnie Rabikoff, and this week we are in the kitchen at the American Restaurant with our executive chef, Debbie Gold. Thank you for inviting us into your kitchen.
Oh, my pleasure.
We are about to make one of Debbie's signature dishes, and that is a slow-cooked duroc pork with roasted cauliflower and marbled potatoes. Chef, what's the first thing we do?
All right. Well, the first thing you do whenever you're cooking a meal is the longest thing first. And
Okay.
it doesn't matter if that's dessert or the vegetable or anything. But we're doing today some fresh pork belly, and it's a duroc pork, and that's a species of pork. And what's really interesting about this, it's a heritage pork, which means it's an older species.
And it hasn't been genetically modified.
Exactly,
Yes.
that too. But what's also interesting is there's a lot more marbling in the meat of this pork.
That's what I'm hearing about the
Yes.
heritage meats is the marbling,
Yeah, we
which is flavor.
yes, absolutely. So this is basically bacon,
Gorgeous.
which is not cured at all, just fresh
So
pork belly.
it's normally what we would believe to be bacon, but it's not smoked. It's,
Yes, cured,
okay.
smoked, or anything, hasn't been touched.
Okay.
So I'm going to sprinkle a nice even coat of salt. Now, if you go really close to the product,
Oh, it doesn't evenly distribute
well, it
or
doesn't,
over.
but you get clumps of salt, lots of salt there, a little less over here. Okay, so now let's wipe that away. If I go up, you get a lot.
And that's
even
why
more
you see the
sprinkles.
chefs, they're not doing it just to be dramatic. There's actually a reason. Well, of course we are, okay. But the truth is that
Yes.
you get a more even distribution of the salt
you
on
did
your
a
product.
good job, because I do that in all my cooking demonstrations. How to season properly, which is really very important.
It is important because we've all had a bite of something that was too salty and then not flavorful enough.
Correct.
And always, please, fresh cracked pepper.
Absolutely.
And
We're going to do both sides. Yeah. Well, and you know what? If you wanted to, you can decide that because there are other vegetables involved and starch with this dish, maybe it's a smaller portion of the pork and a bigger portion of the vegetables. There's nothing wrong with that.
You're adding which kind of
This
what-
is grapeseed oil. This has got no flavor in it at all. It's a really nice flavor.
And it has a high smoke point.
High smoke point.
So this is important. This is not when you pull out your expensive extra
Absolutely.
virgin olive oil because we're not wanting to
The problem with doing that is if you use let's say the $50 bottle of olive oil that you bought at the store, when you hit the smoking point of that oil, you've lost all the flavor. So there's no reason.
Grapeseed oil.
Grapeseed oil works, or canola oil works as well.
Now your pudding is fat side down.
I'm going to put the fat side down. Usually what you do when you're cooking, whether it's a piece of meat or fish or anything, your presentation side goes down first. We've just got some onion. And look, make this simple because this is going to be what we're braising the pork in.
And I
So,
noticed you left the
I left
skin
the
on,
skin
and
on.
I'm told it does add a little more depth
Yes.
of flavor.
Yes.
I see thyme.
Yes, we're gonna add a little bit more thyme. And then the other thing that I like to do a lot is I take my garlic and I'm just gonna cut it in half. It's
Leaving
similar.
the skin on again. This is
Yes.
almost like making stock, because
Yeah.
you don't need to
No, they're not
overfuss.
dirty. There's nothing wrong
No.
with it. And I'm just gonna simmer my pork belly in it. So you're getting all the flavor. It doesn't take me an hour to peel my head of garlic.
Don't need to.
Yeah, I'm gonna add a little bit of turnip in
We
it.
are into fall.
I thought that would be a nice added little, as you said earlier, depth of flavor.
We're going to be adding the vegetables once the pork is seared.
Right, I'm gonna
Okay.
let it sear on one side, then we're gonna turn it over. And I'm not being crazy about how I cut everything. It's just a rough chop. And actually, you know, if you know you're gonna do this, you can actually chop all your vegetables the night before and just stick them in the
And
refrigerator.
that's the other thing we talk about
Time
is
cutting,
Yep.
how to make it more efficient.
That's the color that we're looking for.
Nice brown color, we're gonna turn it over.
And you can see the grapeseed oil is doing great with the heat. It's not burning.
Here, another little mystery that I talk about in cooking. Everybody thinks that you have to turn your flame up high or your heat up high and leave it there. That's actually not okay. What you want to do is you want to start your pot on high. So when you put whatever you're cooking in, it starts cooking immediately.
So you preheat the pot as if, just like we preheat the oven. That was hot, the oil hit it.
And then you want to turn it down to medium high, because that way it's not as violent. It may take a little bit longer, but you'll get better color.
results.
Yeah. Okay. You can also see in this pan is because it is the pork belly, it lets off a lot of its own fat, which is just going to add more flavor. So now we're going to take this out to the side because we're going to
Because it
saute up our
has seared on both sides.
Correct.
And that's what the first step that we want to do, just get a dish nearby like you did, and then into that oil that has happened as a result of the pork and the grapeseed oil. We're now going to saute.
I don't have to add any more oil to my pan or fat. It's all there. This is what, if you read a recipe, it says sweat your vegetables.
This is what vegetables that have been sweating look like.
Yeah, so we're getting a little bit of color on it, which is fine for this preparation, but sweating just means you want to start releasing some of its juices. So now I'm going to add some straight black peppercorn.
Simple enough.
Now this is my little secret. Here we go with a little depth of flavor. I've got some whole cloves I'm going to add.
Wouldn't think of that initially, but I can see where it's going to work.
Yeah,
and it doesn't even come up at you.
No, it will just be a little southern added flavor to our dish. Then I've got some fresh thyme.
I love thyme. It is
I'm going to add some rosemary to it. And only a little bit. Rosemary's strong,
It
so it's
is.
really going to come out.
Don't need much, and some fresh bay leaves.
And some fresh bay leaves. I'm just going to
And
mix that
salt.
around a little bit.
So after they sweat, add the herbs, and now the pork goes back in.
So you're going to sit the pork on top. Now what you've done is you created a bed, not only of aromatics that's going to add flavor to your dish, but you're now also insulating your pork from sitting against the bottom of the pan, which is always going to be hotter than the rest. So we're going to add some white wine.
Just like a Chardonnay or Sauvignon.
Yeah, and nothing, wait, not. So now here's another important step. When you add the wine, you want the wine to reduce, which means it's going to simmer, concentrate in flavors. If you've ever gone to a restaurant or made something at home and you add wine and you cook it and it's got sort of that, what I call, winey or acidic sort of, that means they didn't reduce the wine. And the way to get rid of that, let it reduce to a syrup. And that means, or what we say, if you don't see a syrup till it's almost dry or basically gone. So what it's going to do is it'll concentrate, even though you don't see it, it's still going to be in there, and then we're going to add another liquid on top of it, which just adds another depth of flavor to your dish.
Okay. It's about technique. If you're going to go to the trouble to
Yes.
get the product and cook it, take a few extra minutes and get a fabulous result.
So now we're going to reduce this down, and then I'm going to put some veal stock, which you can find at your friendly neighborhood restaurant. Or
Could you use chicken stock?
yes, you can use chicken stock, or if all you really have, you can buy the chicken stock or the beef stock in the stores, which are fine.
They have organic ones.
Yes, they have great ones actually,
Yes, they do.
and they don't have a lot of sodium in them.
You can get the low sodium
yes,
ones.
Those are much better. What I would suggest is taking, let's say, a half a cup of flour, mixing it in with your vegetables, then pour your wine in, because then you create a texture for your sauce.
So maybe so that the liquid content is about down to a fourth or a third of what it was.
Yes, correct.
When it and looks syrupy.
Yes.
And then once it's
Yes.
done that, you're going to add your stock, and because you're the local neighborhood whatever restaurant, we're going
I
to use
have my stock,
you have your
yes.
stock, but for the rest of us, you get a little carton of chicken stock.
And that works as well. Now
Yeah.
you don't want to completely fill the pan, one that's way too much liquid.
Okay.
And what you would be doing, in a sense, is more boiling than braising, which nobody really wants to do.
No, the result
so-
is very different.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
it is.
so
not
what we're
that
going
it's
to
bad, but not what you're looking for.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to start pouring the stock in, and it's going to be enough. At minimum, you want it at least halfway up. So now, your choice, you can, over a very low simmer, leave this on top of the stove.
Without covering it?
Without
covering it. Or
and you're going to watch it, because without the cover, it will slowly reduce, and you can add a little bit of water to bring it where it needs to be. But what I prefer is to put it in the oven.
what temperature would you
I would
suggest?
probably put it at 300 or 325, because I want it to cook approximately 3-4 hours. And why I love the oven is because it's a slow surrounding heat,
Yes.
which cooks evenly. And I love the idea of braising, especially with the sauce, whether it's the veal stock or not. It tends to start reducing, and then over time, while it's in the oven, you're going to turn the meat over. And what happens is the flavor concentrates down around it, and that's where you get that really
Intense.
scrumptious,
So,
dip your bread, I
Would-
can't stop eating
I
it.
can't stop eating it. So would you suggest turning it over about halfway through the cooking, or?
Yeah, that's good. Usually what I do, I like to check on that, especially if it's going to be in the oven that long, because you want to make sure there's still liquid in there.
Right.
So probably every half hour, I'm going to
okay.
check it. And then when I feel like, you'll see there's a great coating that develops on top of the meat, I flip it over, because then the bottom of it is going to get that great coating. And then when you flip it back over, you've got the reduced sauce that's going to mix in.
It's sort of
to
like
your,
basting it.
Yes, basically.
It's basting it.
First, and then you're going to go in the oven.
Look at that, is almost artwork in and of itself.
So I'm just going to take my onion.
And you're not,
Leave the
again,
skin
you're
out.
not peeling it.
No, because we're not eating this. This is just for the same reason, a cushion for our cauliflower, and it will also add flavor as it's roasting in the oven. So I'm just going to do a little bit of my garlic. I love garlic, as I said earlier, so I can't get enough.
And it's good for you too.
Yes, it is actually. We're going to go back, and we're going to throw a lot of time, because this
So
is...
we're really duplicating many of the seasonings and herbs
Right.
and spices that we use for the pork.
Right, and we do that because we want to reinforce the flavors that are already in our dish. So next, we just take our cauliflower.
Now it has its own little bed. It'll be all comfy in there.
Yes. So now I'm just going to do a very inexpensive olive oil, because this is going right on top of it, and this is going to be a more important flavor
Than it was
profile for our cauliflower. So then
So a little
I
bit
go
of
back
olive
with my
oil.
salt,
Doesn't have to be your best extra virgin. Kosher salt.
and then I'm going to
Fresh cracked pepper.
So now what I'm going to do,
Never
probably
roasted.
set your oven at 350, and probably for the first, I'd say 20 minutes or so, I'm going to put it in just like this. And then what's gonna happen is we'll see a little color develop on it. Then I'm gonna add maybe a cup of water and cover it with foil, because then we're gonna steam it and help soften it and stop it from burning.
So it's a version of searing it. We're giving it some color, which of course is flavor,
Yeah.
and then from there we're going to steam it.
Right.
And cover it. Okay, so, it's
we're
gonna
just
go in
gonna
the
go
oven.
straight in the oven now. I like to roast potatoes a lot, and I don't like to just throw them in the oven. What I do is start with a pan on the stove, which I've done. I've already rinsed these off, so because they came from our farmer.
Right.
You have to do the potatoes; those have already been rinsed. Now I want my hot pan, and I'm going to go with my olive oil this time because it's going to coat it. And what I like about sautéing it in a pan before it goes in the oven
Yeah.
is it's going to crisp up the skins on the outside rather than just roasting, and that it doesn't necessarily get as crispy as you can this way.
And so we're going for some texture here.
Now I'm just going to take my potatoes. So now it's starting to cook right off.
So this isn't what we're going to, this is going to flavor the potatoes. So we have a theme of onions and garlic. All of them are seriously healthy for us. Again, not to serve, but to add as a flavor. So,
Saute up just a tad while my potatoes are cooking.
and this is just for, but although it does have a wonderful flavor too.
No other flavor, and
But we needed something green.
and you have to have your green leafy
You
vegetables,
have to
right?
have green leafy. So here we go. Swiss chard will do it.
Yes.
This wonderful Swiss chard. You could use spinach too,
You could use
couldn't you?
spinach, yes, absolutely. But you know, I'm going back to my farmers to see what they're producing right now and making
And it's
sure.
amazing how much and should drive the menu.
Yeah.
So you can go to the store and have a menu in mind, but if you see some fabulous vegetables or
Yeah,
meat,
yeah.
then that would be a good time to maybe tweak your menu.
Peel another piece of my rosemary. Throw that in. And I'm just going to pop this in the oven. And
So
then
now
I'll
we have
put the rest
three,
of
you know,
my-
we've got three things in the oven now. We've got the pork, we've got the potatoes, and we've got the cauliflower. And now we're just gonna add a little bit of green to the plate.
Now, well, the thing about garlic is if it's manipulated or cut too much, it releases a bitter oil, which you really don't want to. So now, unless you're like a chef and you want to cut it that way, the easiest way I like to do it is you take your knife and
Sharp side away from you.
sharp side always away from you. You take the thicker part of your knife and you're gonna go, and it breaks it up.
There you go.
And then all I have to do is just a couple chops on it.
So you haven't really cut it a lot. Are you a proponent of a garlic press?
If you can do this, I prefer this.
Prefer that. Okay.
But
so
I would rather do a garlic press than the pre-bought chopped garlic in the grocery store.
Nope. We're gonna do fresh. Okay.
Okay, so now my pan's hot. I'm gonna turn it down because
Then you've done that throughout. You heated the pan first.
I want my food to cook right when it goes in the pan. You just add an oil.
And what kind of oil is that?
This is olive oil. That's your expensive olive oil.
Really, you should be saving your extra virgin olive oil more as the garnish or finishing.
That's a drizzling oil,
Yeah.
really, and that is very strong in flavor, and you only need a little of it, and that is to be an added flavor component to your dish. Is the way I.
But
look
when
at
you're
that.
cooking with it, please don't invest in expensive
No.
oil.
Salt and pepper on here.
And you didn't do that until it had cooked a bit.
Yeah, until it's done.
So you're finishing with
I'm
it.
finishing with it. Now, you know, at this point, you can add a little bit of butter. You cannot.
Okay, your
I'm gonna let
choice.
this. Yeah. Okay. Now, here's the other important thing. We cut up our garlic, and if you notice, I didn't put it
I
first
have noticed.
because if you look at the size difference,
You
you've got
remember to do that.
You've got big pieces of Swiss chard that's going to take a lot longer. Had I put the garlic in, it would have burned
And get
burned
that
is
bitter. Yep,
Put a
burnt
little
garlic
bit
is
of oil.
bitter.
Get that cooking. Yeah, we don't want bitter's not good. So now I moved all my Swiss chard over. I'm going to toast up my garlic a little bit.
And you really need to watch it because garlic burns just like that.
That's why I didn't add it at the beginning. Simple. Some of our
First thing
greens.
on our plate is this wonderful Swiss chard with the toasted garlic. Remembering that you eat with your eyes first, so take a few
Absolutely.
moments to make this.
So now pork belly is rich, so really you could get away with a little bit less than you normally would.
Now you've let the meat rest before you cut into
Correct.
it. How long do you like for it to rest?
I think if you let it rest in the liquid for about 30 minutes,
We're good to go.
Yeah.
We're good to go.
Yeah.
And I noticed the first cut was against the grain.
Oh yes. So we have this lovely, nice little piece. So now you just have your whole head. Now, really, see how simple? It's just going to fall apart.
Oh, how beautiful is
And
that?
then, depending on how much you want to serve, of course, you're going to take away any of the leaves from the bottom because
Yes.
we don't necessarily need to eat them, even though you can if you want. So then I've got my cauliflower. We're just going to put it on there. Real simple. See, I'm not going to use any of the garlic.
So take some of your cooking juices from your pork, put
Correct.
it in a little pan and let it reduce a bit, and that just intensifies the flavor.
And it won't go runny all over your plate. That is hot now. Let's turn this off. One more thing, sorry.
I better eat this potato over here.
Okay.
The strainer.
The strainer. And we left all the skins and stuff on, so I want to make sure that that doesn't get on the plate. And there you have it.
I think we're about to wow him.
I hope so. I
think-
did my share. I'm sure he'll enjoy. What's interesting is I can't wait to taste it with wine. That's going to be the good part.
Hello, I'm Bonnie Rabikoff, and we have been in the kitchen at the American Restaurant with our executive chef, Debbie Gold. We have just prepared a slow-cooked Duroc pork, cauliflower, and marble potatoes. I am now talking to Erin Nelson. She is the restaurant manager, and you're going to suggest to us what we should drink with this signature dish. What do you recommend?
Well, Bonnie, I've chosen the 2005 Monnier de la Suzanne from Michel Chapoutier. This is a Northern Rhone Syrah.
Syrah. And tell me, why have you chosen that for this particular dish?
Well, something I find with chef's cooking is when she's going simple and cooking from her heart,
Yes.
it always goes back to where she learned to cook. France.
France. So
Northern Rhone.
So this would mix well with or complement the pork.
Absolutely. You've got a little bit of smokiness. You've got the nice fruit forwardness to the dish. It's a medium bodied dish. It's a braised pork. You're not getting heavy, so you don't want anything too heavy to overpower it. This is a medium bodied Syrah. It's got nice spice, good fruit forwardness, and then it's drinking very elegantly right now.
Well, thank you very much for your recommendation. We have celebrity tasters coming to the restaurant to taste the dish and the pairing, and I suspect they're going to enjoy it just fine.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Hello, I'm Bonnie Rabikoff, and we have just been in the kitchen at the American Restaurant with their executive chef, Debbie Gold. We have invited a celebrity taster into the restaurant to taste the food that Debbie has prepared and the wine that the restaurant manager has selected for us. Our celebrity taster is Kelly Cole. He is the CEO of Halls, Kansas City. Thank you for taking time out from your busy retail life to come here and taste this wonderful signature dish.
Thank you, Bonnie. It's my pleasure.
We appreciate it. Chef, would you like to bring out the dish and tell us what it is we are about to eat? Although I know because I've been in the kitchen.
Okay, so this
Eat with our
is-
eyes first.
Eat with your eyes first. This is the slow braised rock pork with roasted cauliflower marbled potatoes.
And Chef also prepared some Swiss chard.
We added a little Swiss chard.
The restaurant manager selected a Syrah with this. All right, Kelly, the task before you is to taste the food. Tell us what you're tasting.
Well, I never have a problem eating Debbie Gould's food, and it smells incredible.
She is just, and the purpose of this is slow cooking. This is really the cut of that have been.
This is
This
incredible.
is incredible. This is really the cut that we know as bacon. It hasn't been smoked or cured, but it's been slow cooked with onions and garlic and herbs and wine and.
That is so moist, and it just melts in my mouth. It's a little crusty on top, and I see
That is amazing.
it is. See, we have your favorite cauliflower.
All right, you're being funny, but
I
the
am.
truth is that it's not that I dislike cauliflower, but I've never I've got to have cauliflower.
I
until
love
I taste-
cauliflower, but I've never had cauliflower this good.
She baked the entire head of cauliflower at once, again on a bed of the similar flavorings that have been used throughout this entire dish, but roasted it to get the color and then steamed it. What I love about the American is that its mission, its objective, is to celebrate American cooking. And of course, she's into seasonal, so you see September food here.
It's always so unbelievably fresh. I think everyone always talks about coming to the American for an anniversary or a special event, but I have to tell you, if you just want fabulous food, this needs to be on everyone's radar.
It is amazing. And the Swiss chard, I like that she didn't cook it down till it was just totally falling apart. It still has some texture to it. We learned a lot of cooking secrets in the kitchen with Debbie.
She's a great teacher, though, isn't she?
That is one of the things that was so enjoyable about my time with her in the kitchen, is that every step of the way there was either a cooking technique or a little piece of information that I hadn't known before that I know now after being in the kitchen with her. Now there's a second part to your assignment. You need to taste the Syrah
Right.
and tell us if you think it works into life.
Salute.
Salute.
It's a wonderful pairing. Now on camera, do I have Swiss chard in my teeth? Tell you the other thing I love about coming here. This was designed by Warren Plattner, who also was the architect for Windows on the World, atop the World Trade Center.
This doesn't look like any place you've been.
It's not. I mean, this is a wonderful venue to sit and dine and enjoy the view, and the fact that it was designed by such a world-famous architect. It makes it even more special, along with Debbie's great food, of course.
I think sometimes we forget to treasure our treasures in Kansas City, like the plaza, our museums, the fine and performing arts. People are always surprised when they come to Kansas City what a beautiful city it is,
Yes.
and how much it has to offer, along with the wonderful food.
Along with the great food.
It's casual fine dining and
And accessible.
No, American is a wonderful restaurant. I, again, thank you for taking time out to
My
come
pleasure.
taste Debbie's wonderful food and drink the fine wine of the American restaurant.
It's a real treat to be with you, Bonnie.
Thank you.